The starting point of our journey is the harbour city of Puerto Limón, the only important city on Costa Rica's Caribbean coast in Central America. It's a vibrant place surrounded by lush tropical landscape that makes the whole of this coastal section somewhat uninhabitable. The town's origins date back to the early colonial period. Christopher Columbus and his sons set anchor here in 1502. Limón is a melting pot of many nations and the center of Costa Rica's black culture. This is where the jungle railway ends. It once transported coffee here from the highlands for the export trade. Today, this is one of Costa Rica's main transit centers for coffee, pineapples, and bananas, and where cruise ships bring many tourists each day. Next in Moín is the beginning of the 113-kilometer-long Tortuguero Canal that runs north parallel to the Caribbean coast. Many small boats await their passengers who've come here to experience the region's natural scenery. A gateway to paradise opens up. The boat journey through the watery maze of the Tortuguero Canal begins slowly in order to accustom the passengers to the sight of impenetrable jungle. Blue and cow herons are the first birds that we see. They press their feathers close to their bodies so as to protect themselves from sudden rainfall. The tropical rainforest thrives in this climate. Humid and hot, the Caribbean winds blow towards the southern Pacific coast and thereby create frequent precipitations. The shoreline looks impenetrable and moss hangs from the trees. A large rust beriguan hops from branch to branch. Its plumage is soaking wet and drips with every movement. At first, the Tortuguero Canal travels through a partly inhabited coastal area with small wooden huts and tiny boats. The tourist industry has established itself with a number of splendid nature lodges along the canal. They create work for the local people. The canal both widens and narrows. There are a few small wooden bridges as both canal banks are inhabited. The boatman sometimes decides to show off the power of his boat, and the engine howls as the water splashes. Although the mirror-like surface of the water is suddenly agitated, the wildlife is well accustomed to these unnecessary disturbances. Another bridge spans the canal, this time of iron construction. The shore area becomes more open and the waterway wider. As soon as the rain has stopped, a snake neck anhinga extends its wings to dry them. And a silver heron springs to life once more. The Tortuguero Canal is also known as the Amazon of Costa Rica. It's a habitat for much wildlife that is well protected here. For more than 100 years, this canal has been a main artery. Alligators know this too. This system of natural, connected, man-made waterways has always been used for transport and for traveling through the jungle. Four canals were connected from Moine to Barra del Colorado, an area in which there are no roads and which is inaccessible by land. The boat gathers speed again. Soon, we slowly pass the green walls of the jungle and passengers try to spot the well-camouflaged wildlife. Few countries in the world still have such a diverse and protected flora and fauna as does Costa Rica. The wetlands in the lowland and coastal areas are often flooded in the rainy season. And even the dry season has its difficulties. Only in certain sections are boats permitted to go faster. Then the banks seem to fly by, and the sounds of the jungle are no longer audible. Suddenly, the water level drops and the powerful engines no longer function. There's only one thing to do: stop the engine and push the boat to deeper water. This takes some time as we pass small dwellings and settlements. Those who work in tourism and the national park live here. Finally, the skipper reinserts the engine and steers the boat slowly along. The passenger's always on the lookout for wildlife. When the water's deep enough, the boat gains speed. The scenery remains unchanged. Kilometre after kilometre, the same scenery. No human habitation here, only nature. But suddenly, out of nowhere, huts and boat berths appear, one after the other, a seemingly endless harbour. It takes some time until we're able to find a suitable landing stage. Our destination is the Laguna Lodge, one of the most comfortable in this region, and an oasis amid the wilderness. Its souvenir area is designed like a shell and contains the work of local artists, including clothing, masks, and wood carvings. The panoramic terraces are an ideal place in which to relax. And the large, atmospheric open-air restaurant has plenty of room for guests of the lodge and its many daytime visitors. We're surrounded by lush nature, cultivated by man and blending in perfectly with the natural scenery. Paths lead through the green thicket to comfortably furnished small wooden huts that turn the jungle environment into a civilized place to be. Well, until a coati begins to dig in the soil at the door, we're most certainly still part of the jungle. If a large number of coatis show up and all start digging wildly, who knows what home comforts we'd be left with. A large pool full of bright blue, crystal clear water is another welcome addition to this exceptional holiday resort. There are also various exotic birds, colorful flowers, and ornate fountains. A beautiful sight. A narrow strip between the canal and the Pacific coast gradually opens up to reveal an endless sea beach. Powerful waves are driven to the flat coastline by the winds of the Pacific Ocean. Not a good place for a swim. The green wilderness and its many fascinating sights and sounds make one forget the normal hustle and bustle of everyday life. Colorful flowers catch the attention of numerous insects and also visitors. We're becoming increasingly familiar with the lush green scenery, and yet still keen to see more of it. And there's something quite extraordinary. The canal contains some rare creatures, such as the red-eye river frog that becomes active only after twilight. He looks poisonous, but is completely harmless, and to be found on land only during the mating season. The remaining canal route travels by a conservation area, the Parque Nacional Tortuguero. 190 square kilometers that extend into the sea. Here, no one is allowed to settle, and the animals seem to know this. A green heron sits among the leaves and spots some playful capuchin monkeys. They are diurnal, medium-sized primates, and almost always active. They live in groups and are socially organized. The national park extends for 22 kilometers along the coast and parallel to the canal, and stretches for more than 30 kilometers into the sea. Within the park, the Canal de Tortuguero connects a network of lagoons and river corridors that form the alluvial country to the sea. The natural resource of fish is available to the local people, but they've learned to deal with it wisely and to protect it. Since there are no roads, the whole region is only accessible by water, and individuals must use small rowing or paddle boats. The smaller and flatter the boat, the more maze to explore, and guides provide passengers with some good local knowledge. The shoreline areas are important vantage points, as wildlife is an essential part of ecotourism. And there's a rare tiger heron. We're looking for a manatee. These rare and already endangered manatees live in tranquil, freshwater lagoons and are very shy. The hairless, grey-brown mammal with flippers and a paddle-like tail resembles a walrus. Unfortunately, none are to be seen. However, we spot dragonflies and several freshwater turtles that are resting lazily on various tree branches. We stay at a safe distance from the bright red strawberry poison dart frog, a tree-climbing frog that can inject toxic substances into the skin. The indigenous Indians once used the secretions of the cute little frog, a drug called pumiliotoxin, for their arrows. The golden silk spider guards its network. And the green iguana moves gently over the green carpet of alluvial soil. The cycle of nature is surviving well. The The everyday events in nature have become an endless study of wildlife for we humans who normally live so far away from it. A white-shouldered capuchin monkey attempts to cross a narrow section of the canal. And skillfully swings from branch to branch without falling into the water. On another tree sits a ponderous two-toed sloth. This leaf-eating species sleeps for around 20 hours a day and in slow motion climbs down to the ground just once a week. A couple of green fishes fly nimbly from trunk to trunk. And a crocodile lies on a sandbar as if paralyzed. Amazing sights. We're now reaching the edge of the park. The first wooden huts of a tourist camp appear on the shore, a clear sign that we're leaving the protected jungle area. Another short and fast journey on a wide section of the canal to the region's main town. The village of turtles. This secluded Tortuguero village on the northern tip of the nature park has remained small and manageable despite increasing tourism. Squeezed between the Laguna and the Canal Tortuguero, the people who once lived here made their living in the timber trade and by catching turtles. Today, tourism is the main source of income and conservation is the key word. No trees are felled and the sea turtles are well protected. Most of the villagers are descendants of black slaves. Only Christianization helped to ease the suffering of those caught up in the slave trade and who were brought here to work as slaves by the timber companies. The small cabinas and restaurants are mainly in the hands of the black and Nicaraguan population. The heat and humidity are not ideal holiday companions, but the scenery makes it all worthwhile. Unlike most nature parks, the canal allows both nature and wildlife to be viewed at close quarters. At night on the coast of the Caribbean Sea, the egg-laying and hatching of sea turtles can also be seen. Here our fascinating journey through the maze of the Tortuguero Canal comes to an end. A natural world whose beauty is like an exotic paradise.